Hello, my name is Mauricio, and I'm making this video especially for the clients who come to my yoga classes. So I made there a scala where you can see the age of a person. So, and there is the moment zero, that is the moment of birth on the left side on the top. It's here. Yes. So the moment of birth is a very important moment. Yes. And there before there is the time of pregnancy here, where the mother of the person has been pregnant. So, and then here you have childhood, half a year old, 3 years old, up to 20 years old, and then hopefully longer than 20 upwards. Well, limit should be something like 80, 100. I don't know how old you want to become to get. That depends individually. And here are possible shocks that someone may witness whenever in his or her life, and hopefully not witness a war. But many people were born, let's say, like right now there's a war happening in Ukraine or another war happening in Israel. So even if you do not grow up in a country where the war is happening, but if your mother was, let's say, watching the news, and you she was pregnant of you and she was very sensitive, she had a sensitive moment in her life, maybe she was afraid um, of what if the husband leaves her, or what if she loses her job, some existential fears in this moment of pregnancy here. Yeah. So that will affect that little how to say it, that little baby that is there on the belly of the mom. I will try to draw here the head, the little baby here, you see it. So that little baby, which is inside here, um, the womb, will be affected. That will be, let's say, one of the first possible shocks, the existential fears that may even happen indirectly. So if the mom is watching a terrible horror movie or whatever, she might not be in that real fear, but even that might affect her adrenals and so on. And that little baby here can then have its first shock in its life. Yes. So here there is also something which we call epigenetical. That means it goes further back, even before the moment we were born. We, in that DNA from that little baby, I will make here a symbol for the DNA, which looks like that um, yeah, you see that symbol for the DNA. So double helix it's called, yes. So there inside that there is a memory chip carrying some memories, which may even affect that being that is growing up there, that is memories from previous generations that are inside here, some survival kit, yes, oh, you have to be afraid if you hear a gunshot, you have to run away or to put your head down. These memories are inside here in the DNA. Yeah. So when the moment of birth, I said before already, is a very cataclysmic moment. That means it's a moment where, if we want or not, I would say more than 90% of the beings, of the people, have their first trauma here because they have to pass through that narrow passage. And even if that's a cesarean, we think, oh, we want to avoid that trauma, but that's not the right thing because life itself is made for brave people. So basically, that is the first exam that the baby has to pass in order to be tough enough for life. So life is not about running away from possible trauma. Life is about overcoming the possible trauma and winning and conquering, and like you conquer when you climb the top of a mountain. Yes, so that's life. Yes, so when you have here the age of half a year, there will certainly be several more. Of course, we want to make it as cozy as possible for that baby, as safe as possible, but it's impossible to avoid everything. So that means if you're crossing the street and you think that you did everything 100% correct, and all of a sudden you have a very loud Ferrari, a red sport car that is doing like these horrible loud sounds on the crossroad. Whoa, all of a sudden your baby is there. That happened once to my daughter. I was standing on the crossroad wanting to cross the street, and the light was red, so I couldn't cross. The baby was inside that baby carrier wagon, and all of a sudden in Salzburg, there was a Ferrari doing like this really loud, incredible loud noise. So that's one of the first shocks that your baby might have. Yes, so within this half a year or whatever. Yes, so that is one of the possible, because it always depends on how the baby processes that, if it becomes a shock or not. That's always a kind of a question mark, which we seldomly will figure out unless we do not have later on in life, here with 20, 30, 50 years, a therapy that will tell you, oh, that in that moment of your life you had some kind of question mark, some kind of trauma, and seldom we will figure out what exactly it was. Very seldom. Yes, it's not necessary, because the most important is to recognize, to look back. If you're here 50 years old and you look back and then you figure out, oh, there was a trauma here, to solve that trauma and to unmake that situation or transform, reframing. We use sometimes in therapy that word, reframing that trauma. Yes, so there you go, further in life. And traumata, that's why I made these balls here. So traumata, they pile one on the top of the other. So if you have some scar, some open wound, then the next problem, the next trauma will lay exactly on the top of the old one. So the traumata usually normally are, let's say, related to topics, unless we break that chain of trauma. Yes, breaking the chain. Breaking is maybe not the correct word, because it's not a breaking in a brutal way. It's more a transformation of that chain of trauma. So we have to unmake and reframe in order to, like, let's suppose the water of a river, you just give it a different direction, because every trauma causes a blockage. Yes, so a blockage, you want to bring that and flow. Yeah, so breaking was certainly not the right word. It is more unmaking the blockage and giving that energy, because when we talk about life, we always talk about energies. So giving that energy a different direction, yes, so that the energy will flow in a constructive way, in a way that is good for your life. Yes, so that's the goal of all the therapy, to transform the blockage. No matter if you make a therapy with a 3 years old, with a 20 years old, with a 50 years old. I could write here, but the paper is gone. Yeah, so here is the paper end. So anyhow, shocks and traumata in life. This is basically the pile of shocks and traumata that we pile on, like Obelix carrying his Hinklestone. I like that metaphor, because that's what usually happens to people. So people, when they have traumata which they do not transform, their weight becomes more and more like Obelix. You know Obelix and Asterix, so that cartoon. So this guy, the Obelix, is the fat guy. Yeah. So all that fat is a metaphor for frustration, untransformed trauma, and there he goes throughout the world beating the people. So basically giving it back to that what they made to him. Yes. So of course he has his superpowers. So people who have trauma, sometimes they develop their superpowers. That's true. But if we make a peaceful world, a world in peace, no war but peace, then we have to look at our trauma. We have to look at the blockages that we carry, not carrying like Obelix's Hinkle stone for a whole life long, but transforming and breaking it down. Now I use the term breaking again because it's about, now in this time, I use the term breaking because it's about breaking it down into smaller pieces and make these smaller pieces bearable. Make these smaller pieces in a way that everyone can carry that, and distributing the weight and looking back and saying, oh, where does that actual original trauma comes from? And there the family constellation comes in. I will write it down here, family constellation. Yes, it's a very efficient method, constellation. It's usually done in group therapies, but of course you can also do it in a setting one by one. So with a family constellation, you look back in the history of your, it's not about the history that is written, it's about the unwritten history. So it's about feeling, it's about feeling in the morphogenetical field, the unknown. That's more powerful, much more powerful than that what you know. That what you know is usually just a small fraction of that what happened. Yeah, so especially the traumata, they are very many times hidden away. So that's kind of the Pandora box, yeah, where the things that your mother never told you about your grandmother and about your ancestors, your father didn't tell that your grandfather was fighting in the war. Maybe he was a general and killed many people. I don't know. Many things that can happen in life, you know. So within the family constellation, we feel back and we look back to the ancestors to go to this epigenetical baggage that these children, that every one of us inherited.